Hey guys, how's it going? So UFC Fight Night Imavov vs Borralho just wrapped up, and I'm going to run through this card and give you guys a rundown of everything that happened this event, so we'll just get straight into it. And opening up the prelims was Shauna Bannon versus Sam Hughes. So I went with Shauna Bannon for this one by a decision win. I thought it would go to a pretty close decision, but I thought Bannon's ranginess, her kicks especially, were going to give Hughes some issues in closing that distance to land her own shots or even get the takedowns off. So for that reason, I picked Bannon. I was actually very wrong with this one. Sam Hughes had a really dominant performance in this fight. Second round submission win. Very good win at that. So the first round, very short time on the feet before Hughes quickly gets Bannon to the ground, holds top position, lands some ground and pound, nothing crazy. Bannon's just staying on bottom position, trying to lock in this triangle, but constantly failing, not even coming close to locking it in. Meanwhile, Hughes would just land here and there. Got Bannon in a crucifix later, where she started landing the bigger shots of the round with these massive elbows to the side of Bannon's head. Bannon actually starts panicking and tries to get back to the feet, where Hughes takes the back, tries to lock it in rear naked choke, doesn't quite get it, and on the feet to finish the round, Hughes lands some more big shots. Very dominant first round for Hughes, and in the second, Bannon is giving her a bit more resistance. Early on, she starts using her kicks a lot more, which are giving Hughes issues with closing that distance and taking her down. But Hughes catches a kick from Bannon early on and gets her on bottom position. And with 2 minutes left in the round when trying to escape side control, Bannon once again gives up her back. Hughes this time actually succeeds in locking in the rear naked choke, submits Bannon in the second round. Incredibly dominant performance from Hughes. Nothing like this ever in her resume before this. I kind of underestimated how good of a grappler she is, so I'm excited to see this new version of Hughes. She seems a lot more forward-footed, like she's pushing the pace a lot more in this fight, so excited to see what's next for her, and a good start to the card with that finish. Next up on the card was Andreas Gustafsson versus Rinat Fakhretdinov. So I went with Andreas Gustafsson for this one by around 3 TKO. I thought if we saw a performance even close to the Chaos Williams one, it was going to be a really long night from Fakhretdinov, and I also didn't really like Fakhretdinov's recent performances. I didn't like how close they'd gone. I was actually really wrong with this one though. Rinat Fakhretdinov pulled this one off. Impressive win for him. Didn't really look that great from Gustafsson, honestly. At least not compared to the Chaos Williams fight. But breaking it down, the first round was insanely dominant for Gustafsson to start. He was charging out, head down, swinging these overhands like crazy. And he was clipping Fakhretdinov early on. In fact, he hit him with a few big shots that dazed him quite slightly. Not badly, but decently dazed him. But Fakhretdinov, as the round went on, he started to adapt to it, was running backwards on his back foot and avoiding most of the punishment. And then quickly turns the tides on Gustafsson. He pushes Gustafsson up against the cage, lands a massive elbow to the side of the head of Gustafsson that hurt him really badly, caused him to hold up a high guard. And from there, Fakhretdinov just started unloading on Gustafsson. Gustafsson slowly fell to the ground. Was put away with some follow-up shots to give Fakhretdinov a TKO early in the first round. Really impressive performance from Fakhretdinov. Good to see his back getting solid wins compared to his last couple of fights. Gustafsson didn't look great. He looked a bit over the top when it came to his striking. He wasn't really as composed as in that Chaos Williams fight. And it was kind of a far cry from the Gustafsson that I thought I was going to see tonight. Still not taking away from Fakhretdinov. Still really good win for him. Nice finish. And we'll move on to the next fight on the card. Next up on the card was Brad Tavares versus Robert Bryczek. So I went with Brad Tavares for this one by a decision. I do like Brad Tavares. I think he's very solid. But the pick mainly came from Robert Bryczek's fight against Ihor Potieria. He looked absolutely horrible in that one. Got beat up really badly on the feet and put away in the third, I think it was. Really bad performance there. I was wrong about this one though. Robert Bryczek had a really good performance here. He won the fight by a third round TKO. Very impressive win for him here. So first round fight starts off with an exchange of combinations between the fighters. Tavares is landing better earlier on, I think, but as the round went on, Bryczek would just back Tavares up against the cage, land big, unload with these massive combos of shots where he'd target 2 shots to the body and then sneak one up to the head. Even knocks Tavares down a couple of times that round, has him really hurt multiple times. And Tavares' nose by the end of this round was bleeding really heavily. Small moment at the end though where Tavares does get top position, lands some ground and pound from there, but it didn't overwrite the damage that Bryczek did at all this round. In fact, you could even argue a 10-8 in this one because Bryczek did have Tavares hurt at multiple points really badly, but I wouldn't be mad at a 10-9 either. Round 2, a lot slower from Bryczek. He slowed down quite a bit in this round, pacing forward but still not really throwing much. Meanwhile, Tavares is starting to get it back. He would tag Bryczek with these shots. They weren't anything crazy, but Bryczek not really throwing it all really brought this round back for Tavares. with Tavares likely winning just based off increased volume. And then we move into the third, where early in the round it's looking really good for Tavares. His leg kicks are really irritating the leg of Bryczek, and he is moving a lot better compared to Bryczek, who's slowed down, not really throwing as much. But halfway through the round, Bryczek lands a massive right hand, really dazes Tavares badly, gets him up against the cage where he shells up, holds up that high guard, where Bryczek just keeps unloading to the body, to the head, targeting different parts of Tavares, where ultimately Tavares just bends down, folds over, lands on the ground, TKO finish for him. A little early, a lot of people were complaining about the stoppage. It was one of those ones where if it kept going, it would have just been a more drawn out TKO in my opinion. But either way, very, very good fight for Bryczek. Complete day and night compared to his Ihor Potiera performance, and his post-fight speech was awesome, where he told everyone in the crowd to give up on their dreams and don't try, or something like that. Very interesting post-fight comments, but yeah, we'll move on to the next fight. Next up on the card was Sam Patterson versus Trey Waters. So I went with Sam Patterson for this one. I said by round 1 submission. I just liked his finishing ability. Against Kiefer Crosby, he got that first round submission. He also is really nice with his hands, getting a TKO over, what's his name, Danny Barlow. I just really liked his finishing ability. Unlike Waters, who has had some pretty competitive rounds, like Billy Ray Goff, that one got pretty close at points. And I was correct about this one. Sam Patterson took this one. Not a submission, a first round TKO. Very impressive one at that. And within the fight, it very quickly became a battle of who could throw the better 1-2s. Both were throwing these stiff jab cross combos. Patterson did look better earlier in my opinion. He had a lot stiffer of a jab and a more powerful cross. But as the round went on, Waters started to do a lot more damage, especially to the legs of Patterson. They were really starting to get irritated by the end of the first. And he was also dealing some massive damage to the face and nose of Patterson. But out of nowhere, midway through the round, Patterson lands this big straight right that has Waters hurt really badly. Waters is really dazed, turns his back to Patterson and starts backing up into the cage, where Patterson just slowly starts chasing Waters down, waiting for his opportunity to cut him off. And then once he does, he lands another massive straight right that puts Waters down. It doesn't quite drop him because the ref jumped in and stops the fight via TKO before he could get dropped to the ground and flatlined, but still a good stoppage nonetheless. Impressive win for Patterson. It shows that he does have that both submission and knockout ability. Trey Waters, kind of hard to judge because he did kind of get caught, and outside of that, he was putting up a decently good fight, but a really fun finish. And we'll move on to the next fight on the card. And next up on the card was Harry Hardwick versus Kaue Fernandes. So I went with Kaue Fernandes for this one. Even against Ziam, I did think that Fernandes was going to put up a decently good fight. I think he is pretty underrated. And I think Ziam's good as well, if that gives you any sign of how decent I think Kaue Fernandes is. And for that reason I went with him. I didn't like the fact that Harry Hardwick was stepping up on such late notice, upper weight class as well. I didn't think he'd have that proper time to bulk up and look good at lightweight. And thank God I did, because Kaue Fernandes did win this one. First round leg kick TKO, a nasty leg kick TKO as well, where it just slowly, you could see it more and more as the round went on. Within this fight, instantly you could tell that there was a size difference between the two. Hardwick did look really small. He actually looked like a featherweight against a lightweight in Fernandes. And while Hardwick was actually pushing forward to start the fight, Fernandes was content with fighting off the back foot. He'd back up against the cage, catch Hardwick with these big shots against the cage, which Hardwick was eating decently well, but very soon into the fight, Fernandes just starts laying into these calf kicks, and around a minute in, Hardwick's starting to feel them. The damage starts adding up. Hardwick's trying really hard not to put any pressure on the front leg. He's swapping stances constantly and walking around like he's walking on hot coals. Really, really bad look. And then from there, Fernandes would just taunt, back up, wait for Hardwick to close in again, and then just nail him with another calf kick. You could see as it was going on that Hardwick was having a much harder time even walking forward. And anything that Fernandes threw that was decently powerful would send Hardwick to the ground, because halfway through he lands his spinning back fist, and because the legs are so damaged, Hardwick goes to the ground, gets back up again, takes him a while to do as well, and then very shortly after, Fernandes lands this another calf kick, drops Hardwick. This time he rolls across the octagon, and you could tell that it was over. Fernandes has already started walking away, and the ref watches Hardwick try and get back to the feet. He can't do it, calls it a TKO in the first round. ground. Very, very impressive win for Fernandes. That guy must have some insane calf kicks because he did the exact same thing with Garamku to Ledzi, constantly kicking the calf out from underneath him. He must have some of the nastiest calf kicks at the moment. Hardwick, kind of a hard loss for him to watch myself. The fact they stepped up late notice, didn't really have to, but chose to do it and got absolutely deconstructed in the leg kicks. Unfortunate. Hopefully next fight he does get a featherweight bout, something nice for him, a manageable approach into the UFC. Because I actually do think he does have potential. But yeah, this was another really fun finish on the prelims, and we'll move on to the next fight. Next up on the card was Marcin Tybura versus Antti Delia. So I went with Marcin Tybura for this one. I thought that on the ground, we hadn't seen much of Delia's ground game, and I thought Tybura would have that ground game advantage. He'd take him to the ground, start landing either big with elbows in ground and pound, or would find a submission, which I thought would happen. I was unfamiliar with Antti Delia's game. Antti Delia won this one. Very, very, very dominant performance from him. He actually made a massive statement with this win. First round KO over Marcin Tybura. Definitely will be ranked come Tuesday. Really, really nice win for him here. Instantly in the fight, he just starts running forward, swinging wildly, punching through Tybura's guard. His hands were really, really fast, and you could tell that he was training with Aspinall because they do have a very similar, fast approach to their striking, even if most of it doesn't really land perfectly. And while he does get caught up in the clinch with Tybura, there is a moment where Tybura starts to look good midway through the round, trying to get some takedowns and just controlling Delia against the cage. The minute it gets back to the center of the octagon, Delia's back at it, pushing forward, landing big, and this time he lands this massive uppercut underneath the guard of Tybura, drops him badly, only takes like 1 or 2 follow-up shots before the ref jumps in, calls it. Tybura's really dazed, bit like almost flatline out of it. Incredible win for Delia. He looks incredible. I actually think he could be something big at heavyweight. He does have that speed advantage. He's really athletic. He punches like an absolute truck. I mean, the way he was punching through Tybura's guard was really impressive. And I'm really excited to see what's next for him. Tybura, unfortunate. I mean, he does kind of get fed to these guys. So, I mean, his next fight he'll probably win. But, yeah, really impressive performance from Antti Delia. He really made a statement out there. And to close out the prelims, we had Umar Sy versus Brenton Ribeiro. So I went with Umar Sy for this one. Outside of a Mennefield loss, I actually thought Sy was really, really impressive. And I still think despite that loss, he does have quite a bit to prove, especially with his wrestling. He is very, very well rounded. His kicks as well are pretty nasty. And overall, I just didn't really like Ribeiro's recent resume. He had one good win over Dayar Nergazay, but outside of that, it's very on and off. Especially recently against Mirzakhanov. He has shown that he's not ready for that top 15 area. So I picked Sy. I actually got this one correct. Umar Sy did win this one. I picked decision. It actually ended a lot quicker than I thought with a first round TKO. Very, very impressive win for Sy. Very dominant performance from him here. Out the gate, Sy just came out a lot stronger. He was pushing forward a lot more. In his last performance, he was on the back foot, swinging these leg kicks, but not really landing much. In this one, he was pushing forward, and he was landing really nicely on Ribeiro. These big shots that would daze Ribeiro, the kicks to the body and legs. He lands this one big shot in particular on Ribeiro that allowed him to get this takedown in, and from there, a large part of the round was to spend with Sy on top position. He'd land these big ground and pound shots, even standing up to dive back in and land ground and pound. Very, very heavy shots from top position. Especially with his elbows as well. His elbows were really doing quite a bit of damage early on. And after Ribeiro threatens a Kimura, Sy gives up top position, rolls into bottom position where it quickly returns to the feet. And after a pretty big knee to the head, Sy still manages to take Ribeiro down, lands some more big ground and pound where Ribeiro gives up his back, and when against the cage where Sy has the back, he just starts landing these massive hooking shots to the side of Ribeiro's head, which Ribeiro, all he does is cover up, doesn't really try and transition, just holds up that high guard to the side of the head trying to protect himself, but not really doing anything to prove to the ref he's fighting back. Fight gets called via TKO at the end of the first round. Very, very impressive win for Sy here. I think he does deserve an opponent just outside the top 15 after this. He has sort of proved that he does have that ground specialty on him. Ribeiro probably will go back to fighting someone who's just new to the company, win that one, get put into a fight like this and then lose it. He's a very on and off fighter. But yeah, very impressive performance for Sy, and we'll move on to the main card. And now opening up at the main card was William Gomis versus Robert Ruchala. So I went with Robert Ruchala for this one by round 2 TKO. I just really didn't like that Joe Anderson-Brito fight for Gomis. Brito made the wrestling look really easy to get off on Gomis. Granted, Brito's a pretty good wrestler, but Gomis didn't really have an answer from bottom position, and Robert Ruchala himself has some pretty nice takedowns, some pretty big ground and pound as well when he gets on top. and I didn't think that would fare well for Gomis. I got this one wrong. Gomis won this one. A decision win. Pretty competitive at points though. Even though I did score at 29-28 Gomis, there were some rounds where it was kept really close by Ruchala. First round, decently close. I still think Gomis took it. He landed the way bigger shots, especially with his kicks to the body and legs, just landing more volume as well. And while Ruchala did get Gomis down, held him against the cage for a decent part of the round, Gomis just looked a lot stronger in the striking, was landing a lot more better. Near the end as well, he was targeting that body of Ruchala really hard with his body kicks and these knees, but it was somewhat close striking-wise. I just thought Gomis looked better. Second round was a very aggressive start for Ruchala. He was constantly closing distance, landing these big shots over the top that were doing quite a bit of damage. But once again, he was seriously struggling with the body shots, these kicks and these knees to the body from Gomis, visually starting to hurt Ruchala quite badly. And constantly throughout this round, Ruchala would shoot him for takedowns, which Gomis would deny and trap him in this clinch where just more knees to the body really caused him to slow down. In the final 2 minutes, Ruchala does get Gomis to the ground and holds top position. Doesn't do much with it, doesn't really try and find submissions, doesn't land much ground and pound. You could score it for Ruchala. I scored it for Gomis. I don't really think the control time made up for the damage that Gomis was doing, but decently close round. And in the third, the round starts with a really bad eye poke from Gomis. Gomis throws a punch, extends his fingers right as it connects with the face of Ruchala. Really nasty eye poke. And when they reset in the middle, while the striking was competitive between the two, Ruchala would constantly let himself get caught in this clinch again, where he'd just get kneed to the body, slow down even further as the fight went on. This third round was a really slow round for him to get into, and due to the constant damage to the body, Ruchala just didn't really throw any significant this round. There was a moment at the end he threw this head kick that you could see visibly hurt Gomis, which you could argue won him the round. I mean, it was a pretty even striking round here. Gomis threw a bit better consistently. Ultimately went to a decision. William Gomis took a 29-28. Competitive fight though, not a bad debut for Ruchala by any means. He just kind of let himself get carried away with those body shots and ultimately paid off in the third for Gomis. But yeah, slower fight compared to the 6 finishes or 7 finishes we got on the prelims, but still not a bad fight at all. Next up on the card was Axel Sola versus Rhys McKee. So I went with Rhys McKee for this one by round 2 KO. I just thought after that Daniel Frunze fight, he does have that grit and determination to keep pushing forward. And against someone new to the UFC, I could see that being a bit daunting. I thought he would clip Sola and put him down with something big at some point in the fight. I actually got this one wrong though. Axel Sola took this one, round 3 TKO. Bit of an early stoppage, honestly. I thought McKee definitely could have fought on, but it probably would have ended with a Sola 30-27 regardless. So, I mean, I'm not particularly mad at the early stoppage. First round, very patient back and forth. Not really much thrown within the first minute. It's the classic Southpaw orthodox thing where they're trying to feel each other out. But very early on, Sola starts landing bigger. He's doing some real big damage to McKee. McKee would fire back and actually land some pretty big shots on Sola himself, but would miss quite a bit of what he threw. Meanwhile, Sola was consistently landing, dealing some massive damage to the face of McKee. And then very early on, Sola gets McKee down. They get back to the feet pretty quickly, but from there, Sola just controls the back against the cage, knees to the back of the leg. Takes around probably just through that. But there were moments in the striking where it was kept close. Second round, turns around for McKee early. He starts landing hot out the gate, landing these big shots to the head of Sola, especially this right hand to the left eye of Sola that caused quite a bit of irritation. And later you could see a bit of blood coming down from that area. But as the round went on, McKee just started to throw less and less. He also started landing a lot less of his shots, whiffing these big hands that he'd throw. Meanwhile, Sola was patient with the counters, landing nice on the counter as well, and doing a good job at just damaging the head of McKee even further. McKee was defending quite a few of Sola's takedowns, which I guess you could score towards him. But once again, he wasn't really landing most of what he was throwing, so I had to give this round to Sola as well. And then in the third round, early on, once again, McKee comes out hot, but as the round goes on, he just starts to slow down. He did have Sola pretty hurt at the start of this round. He had him in quite a bit of trouble backing around the cage, but ultimately, he just kind of let the fight run away from him as the round went on. And then, out of nowhere, when Sola was back up against the cage, he lands this nasty uppercut, drops McKee quite badly. And then with maybe 2 or 3 follow-up shots, the ref jumps in, calls it via TKO. Bit of an early stoppage. McKee was getting back to the feet, and he was pretty much on his knees about to stand up, but it was probably going to end with a Sola 30-27 even if the ref didn't stop it, and it did look quite bad with the fact that McKee protested, but I mean, I'm not particularly upset about the stoppage in any way. kind of a average performance from either. McKee looked really, really sloppy. Meanwhile, Sola didn't really have any defining moments. I did like Sola's stance. He had a really nice karate stance, but outside of that, there wasn't really much to take away from this fight, in my opinion. Next up, we have Bolaji Oki versus Mason Jones. So I went with Mason Jones for this one by decision win. Bolaji Oki just didn't really have anything in his resume that particularly spoke to me with him winning this fight. Meanwhile, Mason Jones had a really scrappy, fun war against Jeremy Stevens recently, where he showed a lot of grit. So if anything, I could just see Mason Jones gritting it to a decision and taking it just through being the more active fighter. And I got this one correct. Mason Jones won this one. It was actually by a second round TKO, and it was a very close fight leading up to that. It was a very almost finish moment for each fighter within the first round. Before Jones just started to generally take over. That first round was really scary for Jones, so Oki landed a really big shot early on, dropped Jones quite badly, had him quite hurt. He managed to eat quite a bit of ground and pound as well before getting back to the feet, where he was still very visibly out of it. He was swinging around on his feet, not really finding stable footing. But on the feet, he was firing back. Meanwhile, Oki was still tagging him on the feet. I'm surprised he didn't manage to drop him again, but he was a bit perturbed by the fact that Jones just kept throwing, and he actually catches Oki midway through the round and drops him quite badly. And from there, he tries to get a guillotine, gives it up, and instead resorts to landing some elbows to the head of Oki that were doing quite a bit of damage. And while this round was pretty much split half-half, with Oki dominating in the first half, knocking Jones down, almost finishing him before Jones came back, knocked Oki down and almost finished him in the second half of the round. I think Jones controlling Oki for the whole second half of the round on the ground, as well as almost locking in a decently tight Kimura, would have given him the round. But it was a very super close round where both fighters almost got finished. But it didn't really matter, because in the second round, after a pretty even striking battle, Oki shoots him for a takedown, to which Jones denies, gets into a clinch against the cage where he exerts his physicality on Oki. He judo throws Oki very nicely to the bottom position, gets on top, and just starts landing these massive ground and pound shots with his elbows starting to daze Oki badly, where he just keeps spamming these elbows over and over again. Oki was holding out for a decent bit. I actually thought he was going to go out a lot quicker, but either way, he just couldn't find a way out of that position. Jones just kept raining down these elbows, and ultimately it ended in a second round TKO for Mason Jones. A complete brawl. Jones has an incredible chin. He has insane grit. The fact that he almost got knocked out and was standing up pretty much out on the feet and still swinging back really shows his character. Not a horrible performance from Oki. I mean, he pretty much won in that first, but couldn't quite find the finish with the ground and pound, so unfortunate loss from there. Definitely fight of the night. This was an incredibly scrappy brawl. Neither fighter were backing down. They were both throwing to finish the fight. But yeah, this was a really fun fight, and we'll move on to the next fight on the card. And moving up the card, we had Modestas Bukauskas versus Paul Craig. So I picked Modestas Bukauskas for this one, because I saw if this fight stayed standing for any length of time, Bukauskas would definitely dominate in the striking. I don't think Craig has any real skills when it comes to his boxing, or he has some nice kicks, but outside that, with his hands, he's not really the best. Meanwhile, Craig would be trying to take it to the ground, but I didn't really see Bukauskas staying comfortable if the fight was there, and just constantly trying to make an effort to get back to the feet. And I got this one 100% correct. Modestas Bukauskas, first round KO. To be fair, this was more on Craig, if anything. The fight starts, and for the whole first round, it isn't really anything crazy. Bukauskas is landing significantly better, but that's mainly just because Craig keeps his chin very high in the air whenever he strikes. It's a habit he's had throughout his whole career. Whenever he strikes, he leaves his chin wide open, and Bukauskas was taking advantage of that. Craig was eating them decently well, and he would actually have his moments with his kicks to the body and to the head, but constantly throughout, it was just Bukauskas beating up on Craig on the feet. Craig would clinch here and there, nothing crazy. But in the closing moments of the second, when Craig's pushed up against the cage, he tries to pull guard while standing. I don't know why, because he slips out, couldn't get the body lock in, slips out, gets put on bottom position, and in the final 10 seconds, Bukauskas just starts landing these massive shots from ground and pound. Before this one final elbow at the end of the round, the noise it makes was disgusting. The sound it made when it bounced off Paul Craig's head was absolutely gross. Bukauskas stands up. Craig just doesn't even fall over. He just rolls over. He got knocked out from the elbow. No one even noticed. The ref took about 5 seconds to even notice Craig was out. The fight gets called at the end of the first with a buzzer beater elbow knockout for Bukauskas. Really nice performance from Bukauskas. Give him a top 15 opponent. I actually matched him up with Ming Yang Zhang, which I think is a really nice matchup for him. Very approachable as well. Craig retired after this one. Really sad to see. I mean, Craig is one of those guys. He's entertaining, regardless whether he's being finished or finding this crazy finish. He is really fun. Kind of sad to see him go, but I mean, come on. His last performances were really, really bad. It was going to happen sometime sooner or later, so I'm glad that he's going out on not the worst run. But still, sad to see. Next fight on the card. And now on to the co-main event, Benoit Saint-Denis versus Mauricio Ruffy. I picked Mauricio Ruffy for this one. I actually counted Benoit out very heavily in this fight. He looked really slow against Poirier. He looked really slow against Prepolek. Was even getting tagged up in those fights as well. And Mauricio Ruffy is very, very skilled. He's very crafty with his striking, loves to mix it up, and he is very, very fast with his shots, and that ultimately led me to believe that he'd catch Benoit Saint-Denis with something heavy very early in the fight. I was wrong. I think a lot of people were wrong as well. Benoit Saint-Denis took this one. A crazy upset win for Saint-Denis. If you had money on him, congratulations, because that was crazy odds. And he looked pretty good. I actually think he did look kind of reminiscent of his run up to Poirier. But we'll break down the fight. Round 1, as soon as the bell sounds, Saint-Denis lands a kick square across the abdomen of Ruffy. And this kind of set the tone of the fight. Throughout the fight, Ruffy was seriously struggling with the kicks from Saint-Denis. You can tell that body shot as well kind of took a little bit out of Ruffy. He lost a bit of composure early on, in my opinion. And very early on, Saint-Denis gets Ruffy to the ground, where he just keeps transitioning to dominant positioning, holding full mount, a transition to the back as well, landing here and there, threatening submissions. Eventually, he did get put on bottom position, where Ruffy stood up. He didn't really want to land much from top position, so the fight gets back to the feet. And Benoit just starts even landing good on Ruffy, but more than anything, he just dominates him against the cage, holds him there. The fight did get reset in the final moments after a knee to the groin of Ruffy, with BSD having to strike in the center, but Ruffy didn't really get anything off in these final seconds, and it ultimately was BSD's control time that won him this first round very, very dominantly. Round 2 opens up, and very quickly Ruffy gets put on the back foot. He's not really able to get much off, and I think this is one thing we learned from Ruffy in this fight, that when he isn't the one pushing forward, he really struggles to get anything off. I mean, he was tagging Saint-Denis with some things. This flying knee in particular was probably his biggest shot of the fight, and it did quite a bit of damage to the face of Saint-Denis, but once again, Saint-Denis just gritted through, landed some good shots on Ruffy as well, especially with his kicks, and took Ruffy down, where he reverses, takes the back, and against the cage, locks in this face crank, slowly tightens it, uses his chin to tighten it even more, with Ruffy tapping in the second round. A lot of people think this is it for Ruffy. I don't think so. I think this was a massive setback where we saw that Ruffy doesn't really have much wrestling, similar to the way Prates kind of got called fraud after losing to Gary. I think it's more just a lack of this one specific area, and I don't think Ruffy's completely out of the top 15 talk. But man, Benoit Saint-Denis, let's talk about him. He looked really good this fight. I actually think it was reminiscent of, his Frivola performances. Basically, the way people were talking about him in 2023, this is the Saint-Denis that showed up. He looked a lot better striking-wise. He looked a lot more fast. He was keeping his hands up a lot more often. And his takedowns as well were really nasty, constantly mixing in takedowns to constantly threaten that. And it was a really, really vintage, amazing performance from him here. He looked really, really good. I don't think it's the end of Ruffy once again. I think he just needs to hit the whiteboard and practice some more grappling, because he did have some good takedown defense in his Contender Series bout. But I think this spoke more to Benoit Saint-Denis. I think he is coming back. And we'll move on to the main event. And now on to the main event, Nassourdine Imavov versus Caio Borralho. So I went with Caio Borralho for this one by decision win. I did see Imavov looking really good early on. He usually does in his striking. It's usually what carries him through his fights, those first couple of rounds with his powerful shots. But in this one, I could see Borralho changing it up as the fight went on, especially in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Similar to the Cannonier fight, I could see him mixing it up a lot more, doing whatever would give the opponent the biggest issues, and adapting his style to whatever his opponent was throwing. But I got this one wrong. Nassourdine Imavov won this one. Dominant decision-ish. There were some close rounds where you could argue that it was a lot closer a decision. I think no matter what way you cut it, Imavov still did win, bare minimum, a 3-2 decision. 4-1 I'm not mad at either, but still very, very good performance for Imavov. Caio didn't look horrible. It was close at points, but still not the best performance from him here. First round, very slow start to the fight. Borralho throwing a lot more. He's landing a lot more, but they're nothing crazy. They're landing mostly to the guard. Certainly nothing that was hurting Imavov. Imavov did have a moment later where he was landing these nice combos against the cage, dealing actual damage to the head of Borralho, which made me think he won this round. You could argue for the volume-wise, Borralho did take this one because Imavov only really landed maybe 2 good combos that were quite damaging, but not much in between. Meanwhile, Borralho is constantly kicking the body, the head, the legs, the guard. So you could make an argument. I still scored it Imavov. Second round, much stronger round for Imavov. He was landing a lot more with his combos. He'd throw on the counter a lot more with these massive long combos where he'd counter with combos, which was working out very well for him. Borralho would take the first shot and then get caught with the second one as well. And Borralho just wasn't really doing anything. He was attacking the legs, not really attacking the head at all. He did sting Imavov with this right hand that visibly reset the momentum, but it was only one good shot for the whole round. And despite being another really slow, decently low volume round, the difference in damage was very noticeable this round. I think Imavov very clearly won the second. Third round, at the start of the round, Borralho's coach did tell him to mix it up, and this is where we start to see him fight a lot more dirty. His striking becomes a lot more messy, but it kind of works out. He's catching Imavov with these unpredictable shots, his elbows in the clinch, his kicks to the body, his knees to the body as well, and he's even landing nicely with these kind of hooks over the top. They're like a mix of a hook and a straight that he lands over the top, hits Imavov decently hard with them. In fact, there is one moment where he lands his left hand midway through the round that stumbled Imavov back, had him decently hurt. He played it off pretty well, but you could tell that it did sting him a little bit. So I think 3 was the most definitive round for Borralho if you're going to score it for him. So 3 is definitely Borralho in my opinion. I scored it for him this round. 4, similar messy style from Borralho, but this time Imavov kind of adapts to it. It's not really working as much, and when Borralho would go in and try and throw these weird elbows or these unorthodox shots, trying to keep it dirty, Imavov would just hit him with these massive counters. It seemed like Imavov started to learn Borralho's patterns here, would catch him with some really big counters, do massive damage. This was definitely another really strong round for Imavov. It started close, Borralho was landing nicely, but Imavov in the later half of this round was doing a lot more damage and constantly had Borralho up against the cage on the back foot, dealing some massive damage to him. And the round 5, really strong start from Borralho. He came out really strong, landed these considerably stiff 1-2 combos that were bouncing the head of Imavov back, doing some pretty good damage to the face of Imavov, and the nasty elbows in the clinch were continuing to sort of rack up this damage. But as the round goes on, it got closer and closer. Imavov started landing nicely, resetting the momentum of Borralho, having him circle around on the back foot again against the cage, really unable to really get anything off while being up against the cage. Rewatching this fight though, Borralho did a lot better than I thought he did. I remember him getting absolutely beat up this round. After rewatching it, especially in the start and the finish of this round, Borralho was landing really nicely. With his elbows in particular, he was doing quite a bit of damage. So honestly, if you could argue 2 rounds for Borralho, I would argue the 3rd and the 5th. I don't even know if the 1st would technically be his. The judges give it to Nassourdine Imavov 49-46. I'm not mad at that. One judge gave it 50-45, which I think is crazy to not at least give Borralho the 3rd, but I'm not going to scream robbery with the decision they gave him. 49-46 seems perfectly fine to me. Imavov probably going to fight for the belt next. I think he should. A lot of people are saying whatever happens between Fernandes and Derrida determines it. I think they've kind of denied Imavov long enough. I mean, he realistically should have fought for it after Izzy. This was one more test for him. I think he is next. Caio, I actually like the idea of him fighting Brendan Allen. Give him a nice little manageable bounce back. They fought in a grappling competition before this. I'd love to see him run it back in MMA. He definitely needs a tune-up before taking on any top 5s again. But this was a decently fun main event. A lot of people calling it a war. Later in it, it was a war. The first 2 rounds were quite slow. Not the most fun to watch, but a pretty solid, well-competitive main event. So that's it, guys. That was UFC Fight Night Imavov versus Borralho, and a rundown of everything that happened this event. How did we do this card? Really bad. Me and Cam both got 38% on who would win predictions. That was mainly because we had very similar picks. And this card was full of upsets, to be fair. But a lot of the picks were blatantly wrong. Fair enough. Of my picks on who would win, I only got the method by 40% as well. One of my worst weeks yet, so hopefully we get a comeback next week. Where would I rank this card? This card was one of a kind. The amount of finishes alone, granted not the most stacked name value, but 13 fights, 11 finishes, most of which were in the 1st or 2nd round. I don't think we'll ever see anything like that. Everyone came out ready to perform. The main event was also really solid. Even though it went to a decision, it was a very fun back and forth, very competitive fight at that. So I think this one goes at the middle of A, just below 318, but above Imavov versus Adesanya as the best fight night of the year so far. And I'll see you guys next week for UFC Fight Night Lopez versus Silva. Part 2 for the walkout video should be coming out this week as well, so excited for that. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.